Hello and welcome, everyone. I am very pleased to introduce this Producers Guild of America conversation with the creative team behind RuPaul's Drag Race. A very quick thank you to our friends at CBS Viacom for making this panel possible. I would love to welcome Dino-Ray Ramos, our moderator, who has launched the Alternative Hollywood Trade Diaspora, which spotlights people of color, LGBTQ people, women, disabled people, and other underrepresented voices in film, TV, and media. He previously worked at Deadline Hollywood, where he created, co-hosted, and produced the GLAAD Media Award-winning New Hollywood podcast. Thanks very much to all of you for being here. And Dino, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. And I am super excited to moderate this panel today with this beautiful roster of people who are playing with the filters and background before we I want to welcome these wonderful panelists. We have Tom Campbell, executive producer of RuPaul's Drag Race and Untucked, Michelle Visage, RuPaul's Drag Race judge and producer, Mandy Salangsang, executive producer of RuPaul's Drag Race and Untucked, Heng, Untucked showrunner and executive producer, Zoe Jackson, co-executive producer of RuPaul's Drag Race. Y'all are lovely and beautiful on this lovely day. And thank you for joining us. And I'm so happy. I've talked to some of you before. This is the first time I'm meeting some of you, but and I think it's no secret if y'all follow me on Instagram and all that, I'm a fan of Drag Race and huge supporter, and I just love all y'all. So let's just make this a love fest and let's get started.
All right.
But I want to first start off, y'all work hard behind the scenes of Drag Race, and we're coming up on the 60th season of Drag Race. I'm so excited coming on. No, but we're currently in the 13th season of Drag Race finish, and then we're currently in All Stars. But I just want to know, to all of you guys, we could start, the conversation by what a typical day of the life of a Drag Race producer is like, both in pre-production and during production. And is the show fun to produce as it is to watch? So I want to start with Tom, and then we'll go around, and then you can answer the questions.
I'll answer your second question first, because that's the quicker answer. Is the show as fun to produce as it is to watch? I would say yes, maybe more, because we laugh. We work really hard, and we'll get into that in a minute. And but we're the luckiest people on earth because we get to work on a show that actually resonates with people, that sends a message out there to the world of love. And RuPaul says, and he's our leader, and everything comes from Ru. He loves to dance and he loves to laugh. And that's, Drag Race is this great dance, and we just spend time. If we make each other laugh, we're lucky on the show. It usually translates that it's funny for the viewer. And we get to see the queen, we get to see everything unedited, and it doesn't change when it's edited, but there's just so much more of it. I wish the show could be like 4 hours long. So yeah, it is a blast to produce, and every season we're not sick of each other yet, and we're not sick of the show yet, which is amazing. Well, Michelle's a little sick of that's an expose piece. And the typical day, everyone's day here is slightly different, but I'm the lazy one. I get to come in around 9 or 9:30 and leave around 8, 9, or 10, because we're in production. Obviously, we're doing that show. We're making, and we change everything to the last minute because we want it to be the freshest show. We want it to be reacting to what's happening, not some kind of stale outline that we're following. So we're always making twists and turns. The queens are always throwing us for loops, and then when we're done, it's like we're on to the next show. It's a fast pace, but the queens work the hardest. And they have to come up, they have to actually perform and do their makeup, and the Marines of reality television, but we're right there, with them hand in hand, trying to, make them look the best they can. And it's a constant creative puzzle. And that part I love anyway.
Right. And I would say that there actually is nothing typical about a day on RuPaul's Drag Race, because, we do so many things. It's like, to speak a little more to what Tom's saying, one we shoot episodes typically in 2 days, and we spend 2 days as a musical show. We spend the next 2 days as a fashion show. We spend the next 2 days as a
Acting
variety
challenge,
show, acting challenge,
improv,
stand-up comedy challenge. So there's it's being very, very agile with how we produce and how we work together as a group. And again, to speak to the queens, 1 minute they're a host of a cooking show, and then tomorrow they got to be a punk rock singer. I mean, we really put them, and then roast someone. We really put them to it, and it's a decathlon, if you will, at the Olympics of drag. And what is typical though is that we start early, we work very, very hard. Everybody on set is in it to win it. We push ourselves in every way that we can, always striving to one up and top ourselves and reimagine. Oh my God, I thought last night as I was getting ready to go to bed, what if we did this? Why not? Adjusting and scrambling and modifying and trying to always top ourselves and as a group, as a crew, as a cast of really excited creative people. It's really exciting to be a part of.
Yeah,
that's the most typical part of the
day. Sam, do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, I will say that. I mean, I think Tom and Mandy really nailed everything as far as like how atypical it is to make this show as a producer. But I want to add that it is fun. It is so much fun when the crew and the camera are behind the scenes being like, "That was amazing," or they're like, "Oh, I think so and so might have taken this," or "I'm really," they're in it. They're working, but they are in it. They're invested. When you have a crew that's invested in what's happening in front of the camera, I think that speaks volumes to what we're shooting and what we're making. Everybody is really invested, and because it is fun and it is engaging, and we're looking we're working, but we're also viewers, and working on Untucked, we're there watching everything unfold throughout the day so that we're prepared for what may or may not come up in Untucked. So I'm like, oh, this is good. I can't wait to see. I'm eating my popcorn. I'm making my notes. What's gonna, where can this go? How is this gonna turn out? So it is a lot of fun, and things do. There are, fast changes and things that everyone's always trying to heighten and make sure things, like Tom said, it's fresh and new and not something we would expect. Mm-hmm. So that's a lot of fun. Yeah, you guys surprise me sometimes.
I think one of the things, as just even as a journalist and just as a fan of the show, is that you kind of feel this love from the show, and especially in season 13 or these past seasons with the pandemic, and there is this wild need for self-care. And love, and something that we watch. And I think I may be wrong, maybe, but I feel that what we see on screen was reflected in what y'all do, and what the producers do. I think there's love injected in that. Michelle, do you want to add to kind of your a typical day, because you're also in front of the camera as well, so and a producer, but you kind of how do you how is that for you as a producer and as a person in front of the camera?
I start my day a little earlier than everybody else. Get up at 5, and I usually start makeup at 6. And then I'm one of those talents that likes to give hair and makeup their own time, so I don't do everything at once. So my getting ready process takes at least 5 hours. I give 2 hours, and then an hour for styling, so hair and makeup styling. And then I meet with Tom, and I meet with usually Tom as far as producers go, and we discuss what's going on, what is happening in the show, and then he'll run it by me, ask for my input, and that's kind of how I work with him. I mean, they're on different levels, obviously, than I am, and I give my input, what I think, what I feel, and we kind of roll with it. They've always been, as far as me being a producer, very open to what I bring and welcome all of it, which is wonderful, because a lot of times talent isn't given that opportunity. So I'm very grateful that they listen, they hear it, and they implement. If I have something to bring that makes sense, they use it, which is always lovely to feel that way. But to add into what you were saying about season 13, it was so special. It was, we're always a close-knit family, and it is the most fun job. in the world, yeah, every job is hard. It's hard. We work, long hours. We grind over this. We want it to be the best performance for these kids that they can get, and of course for the fans. So it's a lot of work, but it is just the most wonderful production to be a part of. To know that this show is actually saving and changing lives is an honor, and it does not go unnoticed by any of us. We are all so grateful to be a part of a legacy like RuPaul's Drag Race, and it's amazing. But this season 13, because of what was going on in the world, we had an extra sense of not only being lucky, but like being sensitive. We were all kind of very emotional and sensitive, and aware of the queens and what they were doing and risking, and they were emotional and sensitive. That's why it was such an uplifting and powerful season. Yes, they all are, but this one had a little extra zhuzh, and you can't really explain it. And I think the only way to explain it was we filmed it during a worldwide pandemic, and we were all we had. We didn't go anywhere. We didn't go out.
We did it safely, and we were able to do it safely, which I don't know that any of us, for no reason, and I give it up to Amber Ellis and everybody in production at World of Wonder, the medical professionals who figured it out when it was changing on an hour-to-hour basis. But I don't know about you guys, but I was like, we're going to go and we're going to be sent home. It's just like, and it was such a respectful, everyone wore a mask. We were in a community of people, crew, cast, queens, everyone respecting each other. It was the safest place to be. I make the joke that the last day of shooting was the day that the White House, all this COVID broke out in the White House. And we're like, RuPaul's Drag Race has a better COVID policy than the White House.
And you know what? People made fun of us. Like I heard, rumors from other productions saying, oh, that RuPaul's Drag Race is over the top. They're being ridiculous. They're testing everybody 3 to 4 times a week. You can't go on the set unless you're masked and shielded with gloves and tested. And I was like, yeah, but that RuPaul's Drag Race did not have one incident during a worldwide pandemic.
There you go.
Because of that. Yeah. Because they were so overprotected. And because we did have an incredible production team, an incredible channel, an incredible medical team, like everybody was on top of it. For all of us, for everybody working on that set, we felt safe.
Yeah. And I remember I had a lot of friends who obviously work in the industry, and they're like, oh, you're going back in the field already? How do you feel about that? And I told them after that first week, I was like, I feel safer going to set than I do going to the grocery store, than I do going to Target. Like, I'm fine going to set. It's everywhere else that I'm worried about. Yeah. So, that speaks volumes to like what it took to make this season happen from everybody involved. So, yes.
And Zoe, do you want to chime in about, kind of your, experience as a co-EP and just like being, especially with season 13 and what was going on, and just being a producer on the best show on earth?
I feel like everybody has said all the good stuff. I'm like sitting back like, yeah, that's true. That's true too. I was like all of the things. Honestly, like when Sam was saying like she felt safer on set than she did going to the grocery store, that really rung true for me because I'm a hyper paranoid hypochondriac. So I was very nervous being like, okay, we've been in the house for 2 months. Like, what is this going to be? And knowing that everyone was just like so happy to be there, but also taking it so seriously because thank God we all had jobs and places to go. So many people didn't have that. And the fact that they were going above and beyond for us really, I think we all kind of collectively came together like, okay, we don't want to be the one to mess this up for anybody else. And like, we have to take this seriously. And it ended up being fine. It actually worked out way better than I ever could have anticipated. And I remember I was getting calls from other people on other shows being like, so wait, what exactly are you guys doing? And how are you guys doing?
That's what I was just about to ask that, people, you're mentioning that other productions were making fun of you, but like all y'all were doing it right. So did people actually from other productions, whether it be scripted or unscripted, kind of reach out and be all, hey, what exactly are y'all doing to make this right? Like, because you guys, I think if I'm not mistaken, you were one of the first shows to produce a show during the pandemic. I forgot when. Yeah.
I think that we were one of the first, if not the first, of a show of this scale to get back out of the gates in the typical creative model that we're used to, without making significant changes to the way the show was going to present creatively. To Tom's point, worked really closely with World of Wonder, with Viacom, and with safety consultants to implement systems on set to ensure people's safety, because that was first and foremost, obviously, we made for a giant workroom. I don't know if you can tell on screen, maybe you can, but we had to make set modifications. We had to put glass panels between the judges. We had to change the way that we operate as producers, going from a typical control room to individual control units in trailers spread out all across a large,
with their own air conditioning, with their own toilets. I mean, all that's, it's just crazy because once you start to unravel it, as we all know, you're like, wait a minute, it was incredible. And wiping everything down. Yeah, wiping everything down, fogging everything, testing, as Michelle talked about, fewer and fewer in-face meetings. A lot of this, even if somebody was in the room, the trailer next door, communicating like this instead. And Zoe, you and I mean, we very much had the unique, it's always, such an exciting time to contact the queens once they've been cast and to be like, congratulations, you've made it. You're going to be cast on RuPaul's Drag Race. Shortly, you'll be getting your cast welcome letter with all the materials you need to prep in advance, and all your itinerary and travel plans. And Zoe and I worked really closely with the queens who were thrilled to get that call, but were very much like, what's happening? And when is this happening? And how is this happening? And, working with them and Zoe even more closely than me on making sure that they understood and felt safe with how it was going to work, the testing that was going to be required prior to travel, the quarantine period that they were going to have to take part in prior to coming to set, and all the challenges that they were met with trying to prep wardrobe, hair, makeup, and accessories during the throes of a pandemic. And how at times that was extraordinarily challenging for them, but how resourceful and motivated and inspiring they all were to come and then deal with people for the next 5 weeks who could talk to them like this, with masks down, not realizing, I didn't know you had a mustache. Or, whatever there was a story in the last day. Everybody but John Polly, who's one of our co-executive producers, he took down his mask. He was far away. He took down his mask to say goodbye, and they're like, "Oh my God, you have a beard!" Like they had no idea. So they were wonderful, and all of our judges and guests were wonderful, and it was a very, very safe environment. No corners cut, and people. I don't know the specifics, but I'm certain that some of the protocols that we implemented trickled out through other Viacom shows and other, worked with the unions as well. The unions, everybody was figuring it out, but we did. In the abundance of caution, we went to the extreme, and thank God we did, because we were safe, and it's a great season.
Great. Michelle, I want to go ask you, you've worked with RuPaul since the 90s, the 1890s.
For a few years.
No, you've been partners in crime with RuPaul since you're co-hosting the VH1's The RuPaul Show. I mean, how has your relationship with RuPaul grown and evolved, with RuPaul's Drag Race, even just even from like the 90s to being a permanent judge in season 3 to becoming a producer in season 11? How has that kind of changed you, I guess, in a way, as a creative, as a producer, as a human being, I guess you would say?
The odd thing is nothing's really changed in our friendship. I mean, we started out in the clubs together, and we weren't really friends back then. We would just see each other, and how our real friendship working relationship started was we both got hired to do a radio show together without them knowing that we knew each other previously. They put us together on a radio station in New York in February of 1996 called WKTU. And we launched the radio station really officially. And our first ratings book, we beat Howard Stern, which is unheard of in New York radio. So that was a moment where I was like, oh, I think we're kind of good. I think we're kind of good at this thing. And he brought me in to be a sidekick on his already existing RuPaul show on VH1. They did a few episodes, and they decided to revamp it and make it more like the Sonny and Cher show. So Ru brought me in, and I remember so we used to take the same town car. This is how it started. I used to take the subway into the PATH train into Jersey City. New York radio stations were in New Jersey at the time. And I would go at like 4 o'clock in the morning on the subway by myself. And he was like, girl, you're a star. You can use my car. So I remember him sending me his car service. He'd pick me up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Then I'd go get him. And then we'd go to New Jersey. And then we'd go to the vending machine and we get Snickers and Reese's and play. We would play vending machine bingo where I'd go, or poker, I'd go, I'm going to see your Snickers with 2 Reese's. And we'd play that and we'd bring it all upstairs. We'd go into the radio and then we'd leave the radio show and we'd go into his car again and then drive together to go to the VH1 show. And that was always my dream, like always my dream to be like on VH1 or MTV and be a VJ. And I didn't know how to do it. I remember looking at him one day with tears in my eyes, and tears do not really exist. So it was a big moment. And I looked at him and I was like, I can't thank you enough for this opportunity. And I mean it. And I still say it. And his response is always the same, like clockwork. He goes, you make me look good. That's why you're here. And it was a moment of, I understand you and you understand me. And it was really deep. It was like, I didn't even think about that. I was like, you're amazing on your own. So he saw something in me that I never knew existed and I never knew believed. So our relationship has always been that way. It's always been intermingled, commingled. Like, he just assumes that I'm going to do stuff. So that's why when season 1 came around, he just assumed that I was going to be sitting next to him. And so did I. I just had a boss in radio that didn't assume the same thing. And that's where the difficulty was. But the trajectory of our relationship has kind of stayed on course and on path. Even the years where he was kind of out of the business and I was still on the radio, we were still very much a part of each other's lives. And that's just what a friendship is. And we're just so to have such a close friendship and not get sick of each other and are able to work with each other. And he keeps lifting me up more than anyone I know. And my mom's not with us anymore. And he kind of is that lifting up, because I often say he's the only person in my life who's told me the things that my mother told me, meaning the only other person that called me a superstar was my mom. Well, of course, and me, but what does that matter? You know? So our friendship is very special in that way. Like, I know he's always going to be there. And I'll always be there for him no matter what. And that's what it's always been. So that hasn't changed. But the fact that he brought me on and he, has made me a producer and I have been kind of entrusted with my role on this show has been a gift that I could never repay. So I'm just eternally grateful, of course, for this opportunity, but more so to have such an incredible friend in my life, because those are harder to come by than jobs, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, that story is great. And it's kind of friends helping friends and people going reaching up and reaching back, that kind of thing. I love that synergy. But with this season, I mean, like the franchise as we've seen it since season 1, the diversity of queens who enter that workroom and represent their community wherever, whatever identity or gender they identify with, on a national media platform. It's just kind of amazing to see. And in season 13, I want to say there is something special about season 13, not just because we were in a pandemic or anything like that about that, but there was, I mean, I love all seasons, don't get me wrong, but for this season, I was just like so captivated, by this incredibly inclusive cast and background. And there is this level of inclusivity we rarely see on scripted and in unscripted and in scripted TV. And to see that's refreshing. We learn, we allow these people in a safe space to be themselves, which is just so, we don't even get to see that in real life. It's like, we're always code switching and we're always like, oh my God, what should I say? But I think that's why a lot of people love Drag Race. But with this year's cast, I could start with Michelle and anyone else can chime in as well. How, with each cast, do you try to kind of top the previous cast, or like, do you just like kind of, how does it, or do you even like kind of take into consideration what's going on in the social landscape? Or is it just kind of just based on talent alone and just kind of like seeing what it is, and it's just kind of like zeitgeisty, I guess you would say, in terms of choosing the queens. We could start with Michelle, and then whoever wants to chime in, we could talk about this a little bit.
I mean, obviously I'm going to have a different approach than they do because they're way more hands-on, but the way I see it and the way that, Rue and I have always talked about it on the podcast, etc., is, may the best drag queen win. So it's really down to your audition. It doesn't really matter. I get so upset when I see these things about, I don't have money to do it. It's got nothing to do with that in my eyes. In my eyes, it's who can sell it, who is the best presentation, creativity, imagination, obviously charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent. All of that has to be in the audition. You are as good as your audition. It's like that in all areas of showbiz. If I'm auditioning for a movie, I'm as good as that audition. That's it. So if somebody comes in and does it better, that person's going to get the job. So for me, they're not looking to fill this hole or fill that hole or this void or that void, where there are some that have recipes. I believe that RuPaul's Drag Race takes the best of the best at audition. And Ru watches them and says, for 9 years, let's take Nina West, 9 years that queen auditioned. And it took 9 years for that queen to get on. And now look at her. She's touring with Hairspray. She's doing so much great stuff. And she didn't even win. So it's not about winning. It's not about giving up. It's that stick with itness that Ru always talks about. And it's being the most authentic you could be in an audition. A lot of times these queens spend money they don't have to spend on doing a very expensive audition video, have somebody produce it, and then you see it and it's so overproduced that you don't know who they are. It's all about authenticity and the confidence to sell what you've got. Show us how you do drag. So for me, I don't think there's any recipe except who has the best auditions, and everyone is welcome to audition. That's it.
I will say, yeah, so go ahead, Tom.
There you go.
I think, Dino, it's staggering to me every year when the casting submissions start to come in. Thousands, I'm not exaggerating, thousands of people audition every year. And I think it speaks to the power of drag and who it touches. Like you said it a few minutes ago, across the cultural landscape of America and the world now, you know, no matter where you're from, how you grew up, where you grew up, how you identify, there's something about drag that speaks to so many people, inspires them, makes them want to showcase their own charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent. And those are the criteria to being cast on RuPaul's Drag Race. You know, do you have the creative uniqueness, nerve, and talent to compete at this level amongst other passionate, talented, inspiring cast members? It's a group process of narrowing down the thousands of submissions. And as Michelle said, RuPaul sees every single tape and weighs in heavily. And I don't know, Tom, I'm sure you've got something to say to weigh in, but I mean, it's inspiring.
Ru is incredibly hands-on in the casting. There is no quota to be filled, but there is a sense of let's cast a cast. Let's try, you know, let's have the senior queen. Let's have a queen that, you know, is from the pageant world. Let's have somebody who has comedy chops. Let's, you know, so we do try to, we have a big board when we get down to it, and there's lots of really healthy, not arguments, but fun discussions as we all vote for who we want. We watch hours and hours and hours of the finalists, right? We don't watch the thousands. Right. Someone does. Someone watches. Darren, I think, watches every day there is. And he'll come in the 11th hour sometimes and go, wait a minute, you forgot this person, and we'll throw on the tape. We'll go cast them. That's fantastic. But and just in terms of diversity, you know, we started filming this. It aired in 2009. In 2008, George W. Bush was president. Even within our queer community, there wasn't discussion of non-binary, you know, like we have so advanced, thank God, to the point where we can put, I don't want to say labels, but we can, there's a lot of different ways to express yourselves and to have words that go with it that didn't really even exist or weren't top of mind when we started. So some of the recognition of the diversity, I think, and we have an incredibly diverse cast in season 13, is just that we're open, our eyes are open to it, that we see the nuance of the Roy G. Biv, you know, of the queerness. It's not just boys turning into girls. It's incredible, you know, sweet, sensitive, courageous souls who are using their imagination to like create another persona. And Ru says, and I always quote Ru, I'm sorry, but you know, become the realization of your imagination is the greatest thing of all. And it's again, Ru has always been able to, even with that simple phrase of we're all born naked and the rest is drag. It's like, cause you're like, wait, what's drag? And is it a boy? Is it a girl? What am I? It's like, bitch, we're all in drag. We're all putting on a show, and these queens just do it to a different extreme on a different level, and aren't afraid to cross gender lines, or just so many things, and just be there. It's so exciting to be part of it.
Yeah, and I think what I enjoy about Drag Race is that, yes, the drag of it all is great and it's fun to watch, but it's also, I think a lot of us are learning about kind of acceptance and about, what you were talking about, just people in general and how they express themselves. And I think the fact that it is a safe space and we get to learn about, different identities and how people express themselves and people's histories and their heritage, I think it's great. I do want to talk, Tom, real quick about, as you are the EP of Drag Race and Untucked, and a number of other shows in the Drag Race cinematic universe, the DGCU, I guess, I don't know, but it's the Drag Race universe. Yeah, it's insanely, it's wild, it's fun to kind of just say, oh my God, there's like, we have, I'll tell you this much, we have not had a shortage of Drag Race during the pandemic, and I am grateful for that. But can you just talk about expanding from something, that was just like this reality show that was like kind of a counterculture reality show in 2009 to what it is now? It is a empire. You are Oprah of the
I'll
Drag
try
Race.
to be succinct. I mean, I think for years and years in the Drag Race time, since we were sure we're going to be canceled, we were on the tiniest network, who supported us very much, but the tiniest network with the tiniest ratings. I even, not to go too far back, when we pitched this show in 2008, we thought, Ru had reached all the heights in the 90s, his talk show, his music, all that kind of stuff. It's like, for sure, we're going to sell this show to Bravo or E. And we pitched to our good friends there, and they would laugh and smile, and they loved World of Wonder, and they loved Ru. And then they kind of say, we can't sell this internally. We can't do a show about drag queens. And it was Logo and Viacom, who's been our partners all along, who had the balls to do it, the courage, and to support us. And I think a lot of it has to do, again, technically, with the business. It's like, one of the reasons that Randy Barbado and Fenton Bailey, the co-founders of World of Wonder, executive producers of this, who have, by the way, known Ru since the late 80s when they met in Atlanta. And Ru, I think, was in a group called the Wee Wee Pole, and they were in the Fabulous Pop-Tarts. And their history goes that far back. And they were his managers during Supermodel, the RuPaul talk show with Michelle. They're family. And so, Michelle's known them forever. I've known Randy and Fenton since the early 90s. A lot of people come along, we've been doing this, but it is a family thing. And also, this is not everyone's first grab at the brass ring of fame or whatever, or attention. It is something that we don't take for granted, that we're all, thank God the queens are young, because we're not, but with exception of Michelle, who was a baby when she met RuPaul. She was like the Shirley Temple of the 90s. I don't know if you knew that about Michelle.
I was 18 on the good.
But I don't know. We always feel like the underdog. We don't take for granted. The pendulum swings, right? It's like gay marriage, and then look what happened afterwards. Whoosh. And I not in a paranoid way. I think we've made strides, and I'm not trying to be alarmist, but I feel like any day people could change their mind, and we could go away, or we could be too queer. But right now we're having the time of our lives. And so when opportunities come up, when people see the success of Drag Race because of streaming, it goes around the world. Because of streaming, queer people around the world get to see this. And by queer people, I mean gay people and lesbians and bi and trans, but also just people who march the beat of a different drummer, people who feel different than. That's who the show, responds to, and people who love color and dance and all that kind of stuff. So when the UK, we tried to make a UK Drag Race, like season 3 or 4, nobody was interested. And it finally happened, and it's a huge hit over there. So it's just timing. It's a miracle. There's so many miracles in the show. And the other thing I will say, now I'm over talking because coffee, is and Michelle explaining how she produces the show, it's kind of hard to explain it because she does it so seamlessly. Part of, it's the queens, it's the energy we put into it, it's the panel. Our panel, we have to, as a producer, you don't have to produce our panel. You just have to tell them today's challenge is this, it's like, and pay attention. And the camaraderie, the chemistry, the fun, everyone who says, do you guys pre-record the cat calls that they say? I'm like, no, those come out of their mouths. And we just, it's crazy fun. And also Michelle has a respect for the queens. She tours with the queens. She knows them on a whole different level. And so she is their other mother. The queens have two moms, Mama Ru and Mama Michelle. And so what she says has weight, and she has experience. And I don't know, I'm going off. It's the coffee. I apologize.
Don't worry. I just have drank coffee too, but I'm like, you can't see, but I'm like jittering on my feet right now. Zoe, I want to go to you. You've worked in a variety of positions for the show, from interviewing queens to producing challenges. What would you say is what you enjoy the most about a typical behind the scenes? What do you enjoy the most, period, I guess you would.
I mean, I love interacting with the queens. I think they're incredible to talk to. They're so funny. They're so fun. They're so excited to be there. Like, I feel like being on Drag Race is so like the culmination of so many things that they've been doing. So getting to sit down with them and talk to them is always my favorite part of my job by far. Like I've worked on a lot of different shows, and a lot of the people that I have to talk to and interview don't really want to talk to me. That's not really why they're there. And they feel like, and these queens are so excited because they're entertainers. You know what I mean? They want to talk, and like producing people that want to be produced and producing people that want to show you their art and want to do that and like explain what they're doing is such a nice change of pace. It's really lovely. They're fascinating. And also getting to dig into whatever's past the drag of it all as well. Like talking to people about their families and things they may not necessarily share with everybody. Like I always called the interview room a really secret space, because it's just you and this other person, and you become really close. Like over the course of interviewing people over days and days and days and days, you get very protective of them. Like you form a bond, like you stay friends with people after the show is over, you move on, because it's a back and forth, and like I'm sharing things with them, they're sharing things with me, and it's really a beautiful thing. Without it sounding corny, it's really nice to like I mean, it's like a therapy session sometimes for people. It's like, here's what happened. Here's how I felt about it. And actually it reminded me of this, my childhood. And I'm like, oh, wait, tell me more about that. And I'm just digging and digging and digging and digging. And it's like, it's nice. It's really nice.
Oh, yeah. I mean, those interviews are kind of where, some of the best kind of sound bites happen. A lot of gifts come from those interviews, and I use a lot of them, and they're used widely. For Stan, I want to go. You are the showrunner of everyone's favorite post-drag show, Untucked. And I will say that this season was, season 13 was quite fun, and a lot of people were leaning in and like, ooh, someone's about to throw hands. But what for you, what are like kind of the secrets, or if there are any, of making a successful after show? Because there's a lot, and I want to say that Drag Race again blazed that trail for an after show and like what it can be and what it can do. But what are some of the secrets to making a successful after show, and what is it about these stolen behind the scenes moments that make audiences fall in love and get to know, and kind of this is where they choose their favorite queens rather than, well, they choose them on the actual show, but here it's kind of like, I remember like in college, we would have the lecture and then we would have like the TA session. This is kind of that TA session. Yes. But like what would kind of
look,
what would
Untucked is so unique. There's lots of shows that now have these after shows and like companion shows that go along with them, and they all dissect like what and they're nice and they're wonderful. But Untucked it acts as an after show because it airs after the show, but it actually is a moment in time within the show. So when you watch it, you already know the outcome of the competition, and people still tune in because they care about these queens, they care about these stories. Like it is this is a moment in the actual run of the competition when Mandy and Tom and everybody else is shooting the main show. this is this slice of this perfect time where they just get to be, the challenge is over and their fate is like out of their hands now. So there is this release of pressure. There is this moment of like, oh, I can like be myself for a minute before I have to like get my head back in the game for, you know, the next week or the next challenge. And I think for us, the secret of Untucked is really just being a good listener. As producers on Untucked, it's about, you know, it's very true documentary style. We shoot it differently. We let it play out differently. And for us, it's about making sure we don't have any missed opportunities, because we let the queens lead us. I mean, yes, there's certain things we've been tracking and knowing. We know like kind of what's been happening in the show, but they surprise us all the time. And it's about being a good listener and letting and making sure there aren't opportunities that we're missing. Like somebody's being really quiet. What's going on? Let's not miss that. Somebody just said something, but there's like 13 queens talking and we missed that, but let's go back to it. And or it's like knowing when to just let it happen. Like there were moments, and specifically in season 13, it's just like giving that two extra seconds to just let something happen made like the entire show like that. You know, it's like, it's not jumping the gun. It's not like trying to force an agenda or what we think as producers is going to happen, because the queens tell us what's going to happen. And I think that's really, it's a give and take. It's also about creating a space that they feel that they can be vulnerable in. So it's a huge trust thing, from like, they have to trust the people in the room with them. I mean, you know, seasons 13 specifically, because of COVID, we didn't have our usual Untucked space. And, you know, that creates a vibe. So we had to work within the workroom, tweak the lighting, and still try to create that intimate vibe to get those reactions and to give the queens the space and room to feel vulnerable and let us in, right? So those are some of the secrets that are now not secrets.
And you talk about memes, but some of the most like legendary memes, legendary expressions, things that we say in the show, like we just take for granted that's part of the lexicon, come from Untucked, come from those unguarded moments, like Hassan said. And I'll just give Randy Barbado full credit, because in our first season, we didn't have Untucked. We had the kiss and cry area where you, like in every show, where you just see the contestants wait, you know, a reaction shot of them. And Randy just glued himself to the monitor and said, "This is the show." And starting season 2, we made that into online content, but starting season 2, we did Untucked, and it is its own thing. It gets lumped together. I understand why from perception wise, but it is its own show, its own entity that a lot of energy goes into. And it's, you know, well, we shoot everything in 2 days, but Drag Race, you know, we capture everything we can. And that, like Sam said, it's that little moment in time, that little window, you get it or you don't. And something always fascinating, multiple things, highs, lows. And part of the safe space is letting people in a competitive situation, it's kind of unnatural, vent, steam, have a bad moment. We're not there to like pick fights or make them pick fights, but sometimes in pressure that happens. And again, the safety and trust to let us capture that and is real. I think it's cathartic to watch, because I think we all are that way in real life too.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to add, I think the big thing that that Untucked is, and what to jump off a piggyback of what Tom said, it is this up and down ride. It is not this like, oh, everybody's super stressed out. It is moments of love. It's moments of laughter. Yes, there are lots of tense moments. There's moments of support. Like we get to like,
and that's all in one segment. That's all in one 5-minute segment.
Yeah, it's up and down. So,
and you know, I mean, I don't think it's a secret that an Untucked episode is literally shot in the time that the judges are deliberating. It's like 45 minutes where they are on this roller coaster ride of whether, you know, some will be relieved to be safe, some will be pissed that they're just safe.
At me.
Michelle's name always comes up.
Right.
Honestly, there is a panel of 4 people now. No matter what, it inevitably is my fault. But I've come to that conclusion a long time ago. I think since All Stars 2. I actually, even before that, I came to the conclusion that this is my job. This is what I'm here to do. If we were all Paula Abdul, it would be boring. I am here to help extend the 15 minutes of fame that we're all given when we go on a show like this. I want them to have 15 years and beyond. Honestly, it doesn't benefit me to sit there and just be like, no. There is a method to my madness, but inevitably, whether it comes from love or determination, whatever, I am the one to blame. I could have nothing to do. I won't even be there, and I'm the one to blame, but I accept it with love.
I mean, it's I think what Tom, you were saying about kind of the memes, and I feel very attacked right now. That kind these moments, kind of all the way back to even like season 2 when Untucked happened, or even just on the main show. I think it goes to speak again to this authenticity of letting these queens be themselves. It's just like they're free to talk, they're free to kind of throw shade and like insult each other, but at the end of the day, it's kind of this family, this like dysfunctional family, which we all love.
I mean, who doesn't want to go to a drag show and then get an all access pass to the dressing room, right?
Exactly.
I mean, that's what this is.
Exactly.
This is backstage,
Well,
the dressing room.
Some of
the
us
girls
might
are
not,
kissing.
if actually.
Because it's so interesting. Last night I watched the 1968 documentary. Like I just was like, oh, I need to watch something. So the Queen, the one with Crystal Abasia, and at the end when she just kind of goes off, and I was like, it was like nothing really has changed in terms of the authenticity of these queens, except for no shade to the 1968 queens, but the level of drag, because like of course it's going to evolve and how it looks and everything like that. But just watching that, I was all, change these queens in this documentary to kind of to like Gottmik, to Simone, to Candy Muse. It's the same exact thing, and I think that speaks to kind of this really rich authenticity of culture and like this preservation of queer people and being authentic. And I think that's kind of like, I was like thinking, I was like, this documentary is basically a long episode of Untucked.
The biggest compliment you could ever pay.
Right.
I was like, what if they like even shot it on film? That would make it interesting, but that would take a long time. But but kind of going deeper into Untucked, like it's such an unfiltered, such raw quality. How do you work with the queens to kind of make this balance, or just kind of do you take a very fly on the wall approach? Do you kind of be more hands off, or kind of just one foot in, 1 foot out thing? How does that work in terms of getting these moments?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a balance. I think it starts with creating a space that they feel comfortable to be themselves in. I think that trust is like to me, very key. And then I think it's letting them, they come in, there are things they want to say. They come in like they have to it's like group therapy. They lead each other. It's us allowing them to do that and giving them the space to do that. Listen, I am on walkie fighting Mandy. I need 10 more minutes. Like, because they're like, we're ready, we're done. Deliberations are done. I'm like, I just need 10 more minutes. Let's let this finish, So it is, and it's also, like I said, making sure we're not missing opportunities, because there's a lot happening, we only have a certain number of cameras. There's a lot of queens at the beginning. And we let them break off. Like, I like them feeling like they can get up if they want to go outside, get some fresh air and have a smoke, or if they want to go, touch up in the back mirror, they are allowed to do that. I think, they feel the need to check in with each other, and we follow that. It is a fly on the wall, but it's an active fly. So I like to say that we're listening, but we're also
buzzing around.
Yeah, we're buzzing around. It's a fly that just goes a lot to outside, to inside. And we've recruited a beetle. I don't know if anyone remembers this season, but there was a beetle.
Oh yes.
A lot of, so we are that beetle. No, but it is it's also, again, I can't stress enough how important listening really is. It's like when you don't listen as a producer, you're missing moments. And when we get to the edit, it's important to make a show and to create a show in the edit that really that paints the best picture of these queens and what happened in Untucked, right? It's what we put into what we leave out of the show is important as what we put into the show. And, it's, you know, we don't just show like in that, you know, everyone wants to talk about the big heated moment with Candy and Tamisha, but like that episode was full of so many other things. There were very emotional moments. Yes, we had the heated moment. Yet there was this hilarious moment with the beetle outside. So for us to focus on just one thing would be a disservice to the queens. And I think that's our approach to it, is really, you know, being an active fly on the wall, but letting the content speak for itself, and then making sure that that is translated in the edit as well, right?
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, it's like, I think that Tamisha and Candy moment, so I think I may have mentioned to some people before, but I am part of a Drag Race fantasy league. And when that moment happened, our group chat was blowing up. It's like, because we get points for Untucked and in certain moments that people get fight. And I don't think I had Tamisha or Candy that time. I was like, damn it.
Listen, it was again, talk about like, that was a moment that we were shocked, and it was, and then in that moment it was like, oh my god, make sure, you know, cameras, we're on the right people, we getting reactions. Like I could tell it shocked Candy. Candy didn't see it coming, you know, and I don't think Tamisha had walked in with any intent. It literally was like this spark just ignited, and we needed to make sure we let that spark flame up and die out on its own, right?
And it was great. Yeah. I said what I said. I said what I said.
I mean, what?
Talk about me.
I think really just what an incredibly talented group of queens this season, who with so much to show, so much to prove, who were there under such unprecedented circumstances. The challenge is the act of participating under the best of circumstances is so daunting. And then you add to it the anxieties that came along with the pandemic, with the isolation, you know, and the quarantines and the mask and the separation and all the ways that they had to engage in this really unprecedented season of Drag Race. The sisterhood was tight, and they were the best of sisters and the most dysfunctional of sisters at times. And that makes for good TV. And I think it's nothing but love and respect from all of them. And it was captured really well on Untucked, and boy, did they far exceed in every way, I think, any expectation we could have had from them this season. Talented queens.
And I think you know, during the pandemic, you know, there were a lot of TV shows that kind of remind us that we're in a pandemic, mostly scripted shows, but you know, people would be wearing masks, they would talk excessively about COVID, and like it was kind of a downer in this way, because it's like, oh, I think sometimes you watch TV to get out of our reality. But I think what y'all done with Drag Race and how you kind of framed it, especially with season 13, I think there was a fantasy, but it was also like, oh, it wasn't so much of a fantasy that we forgot our reality, but it was just like, oh, for this hour and a half or so, these are my girls, these are my, you know, people.
That's what it felt like. We talked about the walkthroughs with Rue when he comes in the workroom and, you know, gives them, those went on forever, and we couldn't like, you know, we're like on the clock, but it's like, it was a time for Rue, you know, all of us were like socially deprived. And so they could get in and they laugh more, you know, we could have a whole show on walkthroughs, the unused footage. And I say, you know, we did do that, COVID special, because we didn't really want it, you know, nobody wants to be reminded every second in the show, but we did want it, and we were able to document that and the specialness of what, and from the Queen's point of view. So that was a unique byproduct of this thing. Just again, what an amazing group of people. Let's hear them tell their story. And then the other thing we did to try to distract people from the pandemic was when we could use the pit crew safely, we would put them not only in tiny, tiny underwear, but tiny masks with studs on them. We thought that would make it all just like all survived it.
I think I personally enjoyed a lot of these moments when in season 13, when the queens would go out and they would just like be out with like just a face shield, like holding it and laugh. I was like, I know we're in bed, but it's kind of funny just to see like Simone with this like plastic shield just like this, and like they're talking shit about like other people. I'm like, I enjoyed it so much. It's like, oh yeah, we're in a pandemic, but you could still look fabulous and put this plastic shield and
especially if you bedazzle it a little bit.
It's fine. I think we're running down on time now, but I want to kind of the final question for everyone, and we'll go around. the circle, the friendship circle, and talk about it. But you know, why do you think Drag Race connects with so many people, and as Rue says, brings family together? Michelle, we'll start with you, Zoe, then go to Mandy, Tom, and then end with Sam.
I think, I mean, I see it in a few different levels, but I'm going to try to break it down so everybody can get a voice in here for really the base of what it is. I think Drag Race connects with so many different people in different age groups, in different backgrounds, ethnicities, genders, race, all of it, because we can see ourselves in somebody at any given time in the show, in the cast, on the judges panel, the celebrity guest, whatever it is. I think parents learn from it about their queer child that they may not have understood, and watching the show with them, they understand a lot more. And even if said child doesn't consider themselves part of the rainbow spectrum and they're not queer, so to speak, but they are an outlier, they are a misfit, an outsider that doesn't fit in or never felt like they fit in, they see themselves and they can be identified as somebody like one of their favorite queens or somebody on RuPaul's Drag Race, and they realize there is a place for them. There is a place that they fit in, and it's with those people. And that's kind of what happened to me in my life. So if I had a show like RuPaul's Drag Race to watch, it would be like the most, it'd be like, you know, in The Wizard of Oz when it turns from black and white to color. It's that moment of, I am real, I am validated, I do exist, and that's my family right there. So I'm on a mission to find those people. And I think that's why it resonates with so many people of so many different ages and everything else. That's the core of it. It's feeling validated and feeling loved and knowing you're not alone.
Nice. Zoe.
Yeah, I guess kind of to piggyback on that same idea, I think that seeing people be so true to who they actually are is really validating for everyone. I think watching people live in their true self and be authentic is something so many people feel like they can't do in their lives. So getting to live vicariously through other people watching that on their screen is probably as close as some people can get sometimes. And I feel like there's something really cathartic about watching people live in their truth and enjoy themselves and have fun and laugh. And also sometimes things are just fun to watch. Drag Race is just a good time. Like you turn on the TV and you're like, this is hilarious. I'm so happy. I don't have to really, you know what I mean? It doesn't take a whole lot of thought. Like it's just you watch it and you feel joy. And it's like pretty sparkly things. I watch it with my 2-year-old nieces and nephews, and they're like, pretty sparkly people, and I'm like, yes, it's pretty sparkly people. So it's fun, you know.
Yeah. Mandy.
Yeah, I mean, all the things. I think that you know, I personally think that the Drag Race is family viewing. I think it's wholesome. I think that it's an opportunity to, in each episode, learn things about humanity, to learn about how to capture, to identify and recognize the best parts of yourself and put that on display. No matter if you are a plus size queen or you know, if your strengths lie in fashion or comedy or singing or performing, whether you're shy but you put on your drag and you are the most you know, powerful and fierce drag superhero that there ever was. It's the queens who teach us. In every episode, I learned something that about someone, about myself, and I think that connects to people. And then you laugh your face off, like Zoe said. You know, I'm going to mention one more time the way that we're working in these COVID days. It's like a trailer park. We're all in these trailers. We're all spread all around, and you can still hear one another laughing through the walls. The trailers are rocking and shaking, and everybody's just so excited and proud to be there. And I think it's captured on TV, and I think the audiences love it. They like to laugh and cry and learn and rejoice and dance and sing and think. So nice. Anybody else got anything else? No.
Tom, how about you?
Everything they said, and two things. One, RuPaul. Yeah. No one's done more for drag in terms of bringing it not to the main, not selling out, but making people understand what it is and what's important. And baked into RuPaul's message since the day that Randy and Fenton met him, posting pictures of himself on telephone poles, like in a jock strap and in football, you know, and shoulder pads.
Yeah.
Because Ru was the original tweet. He was tweeting before there was a place to tweet. He was posting, but it's love. And that sounds so corny and I'll tear up, but like, it's what everybody's been saying. Like, we make the show with love. The show is about finding love. And RuPaul's message has been, everybody say love. And if you can't love yourself, how the hell are you going to love somebody else? Which we say a lot, but it doesn't make it any less potent. And that has been Ru's thing. And I think it's also the struggle to find love is in that. It's not just like, oh, we love each other, we're all cool. It's like, no, it's like, remember to love yourself, love other people. And that's what this show does. When we're making it, the queens who are presenting it, the judges to the queens and back. And I think that pours out of the screen onto people. And second, slightly superficial, Theron, our executive in charge of talent, we've recently lost his soul to TikTok. He only watches TikTok now. And he says, you know, he's not a kid, but he's younger than me. And he said, you know what? RuPaul's Drag Race is like watching TikTok. I mean, we have a very strong, you know, format. It's story, it goes, but like, there's so much happening. It's like, there's memes, there's fashion, there's history, there's emotion, you know, it's like flipping through a TikTok feed. It's just, it's sort of, you can't turn away once you start watching it. And it always ends with a lip sync for your life. So come on.
And Sam, bring us home.
Oh man, no pressure. Got how I top all that. Everything everyone said, but also to the credit of the producers and the creative of Drag Race, there's so many pop culture references from back in the day, current. I mean, you know, they're very good at injecting culture and pop culture that lots of people, nuggets you can take away that people can relate to. And I think that speaks to the creativity of the show. Hands down, I'm huge on comedy. And I think laughter is, you know, something that everyone can relate to and everybody yearns for, like love. But the show makes you laugh. And it makes you think. And I think that's what resonates with a lot of people as well, along with everything else. But to me, laughter unites people. It brings people together. And the show does that. And it makes you have a good time. And, you know, that to me is part of the glue.
Yeah, and I do just want to say that, yeah, you know, bringing families together is a big thing. It's like, my sister, you know, she hopped on the Drag Race wagon so late, like almost a year. I think it was like even like a year and a half ago, and she just binged all seasons. And then she was like, then she started watching Paris is Burning, and then she just kind of like dove deep into this culture. And then she brought my nephews along with her, who are, you know, and they're fans of Drag Race, and you know, it's just. And then like I have these straight dude friends, like they're dudes, they're bros. They're like, oh, hey man, you see Got Mixed? I was like, oh, wait. and it's kind of like, it does bond people together. And I do thank you kind of for giving us this never ending stream of Drag Race for this past year and a half. And, you know, we love to see it. And I remember people were joking. They were like, oh, is season 13 like 40 episodes? What's going on? And I was like, oh, you know, if it was, I would not mind, because I was like, oh, just keep it coming. But, you know, I thank y'all for the show. Thank you for joining us. Tom, Michelle, Mandy, Zoe, and Sam, thank you so much for doing the show. Thank you for chatting with me, and just thank you for being you. And here's for 40 more seasons of Drag Race.
Thank you for loving what we do. Thank you so much.
We appreciate it. Of course. I wouldn't do this if I wasn't. But thank you all so much, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.